inside Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City, Iowa for a tri-meet of men's gymnastics on BTN as the Gophers and the Huskers visit the Iowa Hawkeyes. Take a look at the national rankings, and all 7 Big Ten programs are in the top 11. Minnesota at 6, Iowa at 10, and Nebraska at 11. Hello, everyone. I am Mike Wolf alongside 3-time Olympian John Roethlisberger. And, John, Minnesota has already defeated Iowa and Nebraska this year. It seems like this meet is the Gophers to win.
Well, you know, Mike, they come in on a hot streak. They've won 2 in a row. Conversely, Nebraska and Iowa are coming in off of losses. But these teams are really bunched close together. And really, more importantly, in the big picture, it's the second half of the Big Ten season. They need to start coming into form because all 3 of these teams want to take that next step to the upper echelon of the Big Ten.
Just over a month away from Big Ten championships in Lincoln, Nebraska. But, John, give us a few gymnasts to watch for in this meet.
Well, none of these teams really have superstars per se, but for Minnesota, Ellis Manning, he won the all-around competition at the biggest early season competition, the Windy City Championships, earlier this year, and his pommel horse, number 5 in the country, is probably the single most important routine for the entire Minnesota squad. And for Nebraska, they've really been riddled with a lot of challenges this year, a lot of injuries. Most recently, the flu epidemic has swept through their team, so they'll lean heavily on C.J. Shaw to carry that squad as well, hopefully get them back on track. And for Iowa, Matt McGrath really embodies everything that Coach J.D. Reed believes in. He's a hard worker, he's a co-captain, and he's one of the leaders, and he is outstanding, especially on the floor in the vault.
Senior day for the Iowa Hawkeyes. McGrath and Angelo Bronzino will be honored here in Carver Hawkeye Arena. Look at the rotation. Number 1, Minnesota on the horse, Nebraska on the rings, and Iowa on the floor. When we return to Carver Hawkeye Arena, it's the 6th consecutive year that these 3 teams have met in a tri-meet as Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska will face off on BTN. Coming up next, we'll have the first rotation between these 3 Big Ten programs in men's gymnastics. John Roethlisberger, almost set to get underway. These 3 teams meeting for the 6th consecutive year in a tri-meet. It was Minnesota who won it a year ago. We take a look at Nebraska on the rings to start off the day. Grant Perdue will start off the meet. Robbie Cox, the anchor for the Cornhuskers in the first rotation. And then on the floor for the Iowa Hawkeyes, the home team starting out on the floor routines. As you see, Brandon Field will lead the way. Jack Boyle going all around for Iowa this afternoon. Matt McGrath in that anchor spot, back from an injury that has plagued him the last couple of years, but good to see him back in full form this season. And the Minnesota Golden Gophers coming in ranked 9th in the nation on the pommel horse. We'll start things off with Danny DiBenedetto. Paul Montague had a career high last week with a 15.1. That tied for first for him in the meet for the Golden Gophers. And Ellis Manning will finish things off in that anchor spot. Grant Perdue will start off the day for the Cornhuskers on the rings. A 5'9" junior out of Houston, Texas. First-team All-American on floor and vault in the past 2 years, but he also had a season-high 14.0 on rings against Air Force on January 25th. And he will get things started for us, John, in this tri-meet.
And we talked about in the Open, Nebraska having some injuries, and most recently, the flu epidemic coming through their team. Some of their guys are sick. A couple guys out. Andy House, in particular, is not in the lineup. Wyatt Aycock, who's got the flu, may try to tough it out. So they're a little bit thin in depth, but that just means they got to be a little bit more perfect on the routines that they're doing. And this guy he's a good start. He's really known for his floor and vault, but he's a good starter, a good get the energy guy going on the still rings for Nebraska. Everybody knows the still rings. It's all about strength. He starts out with the iron cross. However, you do have to have some good swing, too. That's made a little bit of a resurgence in recent years. So you can't all be about the muscle, but unless you got that strength move, you're not going to get the big score.
Grant Perdue was named the Gymnast of the Week in the Big Ten after this meet a season ago. Put together some solid routines last year in Lincoln.
Very clean routine. Not a lot of difficulty. He's got some very basic iron cross strength moves, and his dismount was just a C dismount. You need to have a D dismount, otherwise you're hit a couple tenths by the judges. But here's the look at the swing move, swing to handstand. They call him the still rings because you got to keep him still. He does a good job with that. And very clean. We'll talk a lot about start values throughout this competition. That's not going to have a huge start value, but the execution part of his score should be very high, as he had very few areas for the judges to take deductions.
Grant Purdue getting the Cornhuskers off to a good start on the still rings, as we will head over to the floor and the Iowa Hawkeyes. There's Iowa with Jack Boyle, sophomore from Naperville, Illinois, ranked 7th in the nation in the all-around. Jack's really picked it up in his second year with the program. He's coming off or had a season high earlier this year at Oklahoma, 14.80 on the floor.
And talking to Coach J.D. Reeves, you know, over the last few years and really throughout his tenure at Iowa, this is his 4th season, he's really tried to change the philosophy a little bit to what he likes to do. And really early in the season, it's all about a lot of repetitions, a lot of work, a lot of routines. And so the guys, when they get to competition, they're, quite frankly, they're a little worn out early in the season. But the plan is you get in shape and you beat them up a little bit. So when you get to later in the season, they can taper down and they're really strong. So right now is kind of that time, talking to J.D. Reeve, where they're starting to back off a little bit, starting to refine, starting to get a little better. So, you know, you're going to start to see them hit more routines and probably see them start to put up much higher scores than they did earlier in the year.
Coach Reeve has said that this group of Iowa Hawkeyes more consistent than he's had in his prior 3 seasons. Even though they're young, they're not maybe getting the scores that they want. They are consistent. They're hitting routines, and eventually those scores will come up.
Yeah, and, you know, we talked to Mike, you and I were talking to J.D. Reeve before the competition. He said, you know, and he kind of said it offhand, but he goes, you know, we hit our routines, we're going to win this meet.
Yeah.
And really, that's the story of gymnastics. You know, he says that, and it's not really something that's kind of arrogant necessarily, because really that's the truth. When you get to the meet in the sport of gymnastics, almost every time it's the team that hits their routines, because everybody's going to have mistakes. It's just who has the fewest.
Well, and so much changes in a few weeks when these teams switch to 5 up, 5 count. We will see 6 gymnasts on each apparatus, with their scores being able to go to the overall team score. Only 5 of those scores will count. Each team can drop 1 score. However, at this point in the year, it's the 6 up, 5 count. Very soon, it'll be 5 up, 5 count.
Judges seem like they're having a little trouble over there on the floor getting that first score up.
We will go to Austin Epperson on the rings for Nebraska. Redshirt freshman out of Allen, Texas, at a 14.60 in Minneapolis on the rings 2 weeks ago.
This kid is a great story, too. He's a legacy at Nebraska. His parents, both Mike and Lisa, were Nebraska Cornhuskers. And he had a point in his career where he had a very serious wrist injury. It looked like he might never do gymnastics again. And there's a doctor back home that said, you know, give me a shot at this. I think I can get this kid back on the horse.
Excuse us, it is Zach Hedval.
That is all true about Epperson, though, that I just said.
Zach Hedval over on the rings, the senior from California.
They need to change up their haircuts a little bit, Mike.
Hedval, 3 scores over 14 this year on the rings.
Again, good strength moves, not the most difficult sequences you're going to see. But again, a good game plan for Nebraska. Let's get up there, let's hit clean routines. Even if it's not a big start value, hit perfectly, put the pressure on the other teams. Another planche, that's called. And just a double tuck dismount. That's a very simple dismount, which will cost them significant points in the start value category. But one thing of note, and this is very important in men's gymnastics in college, is sticking the dismount. And he did that there. Back up by straddle L, press to the planche. And there's the dismount. Just a tuck double back. But again, you're going to do easy stuff, make it perfect.
And now over to Jack Boyle on the floor. As we talked about earlier, the sophomore from Naperville will finally get going on his routine.
And it's awful as a gymnast when you're sitting there and you've got to wait and wait and wait. Because what people don't realize, and there's a nice Arabian double front, people don't realize there's a routine before the routine. So as a gymnast, you know the other guy lands, you stand up, you bounce around a little bit, you chalk up, there's a rhythm to what you do as you get ready for the routine, as silly as that sounds. And when you're at the point where, okay, now is the 10-second window where the judge is going to raise the flag and he doesn't do it, and lo and behold, it's 5 minutes later, that whole pattern has kind of been shaken up. Now, it's important to stay focused because it's going to happen to everybody on every team, and so far, Jack seems to be handling it quite well.
Quick score update for you. Grant Perdue of Nebraska on the rings, 14.3 for him. And we have not seen Minnesota on the horse yet, but so far some big scores for them, over 15 in their first 2 routines.
And that's a nice score for Grant, too. First guy up over a 14 on rings. There's a double full dismount. Easy dismount again, takes that hop, gives those points away, but overall, not a bad routine. There's the Thomas. 1.5 twisting, 1 and 3, a very popular skill. Those rollout skills tend to be very popular skills because you don't have the same landing deductions typically that you'd have on something like that. As you see the hop on the landing. Not bad combination, though. Very tough. 2.5 twist punch front.
We will await the score of Jack Boyle and bring you scores throughout the afternoon. And John Scallon will be up next on the horse for the Golden Gophers, and some scores for you already. Danny DiBenedetto started things off for Minnesota, 15.2. And we had talked about Paul Montague earlier about his 15.1 that tied for first last week. Well, he just had a 15.8.
That's outrageous, Mike. 15.8. And I'm looking at his start value. Unless I have the start value wrong, it's right at about a 15.8. So I'm not sure if that was actually the score he got or they flashed his start value. So
well, we may have to double check the score. We will double check on the score. It does appear, as you're correct, the start value instead of his actual score. So the start value for both DiBenedetto and Montague, those are 15.2 and 15.8 on the start value.
That would be amazing, because you don't see that. Literally be the equivalent of a perfect 10, which, trust me, judges nowadays, they will find something wrong. They will imagine they saw it if it's not there, but
there is J.D. Reeve, head coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes in his 4th season.
And he did an amazing job last year. Iowa surprised the country when they finished 5th place at the NCAA championships, and really they weren't on the radar throughout the whole season, and then suddenly here they are at the NCAA championships in the finals. And that's, again, like we alluded to earlier, that's JD's philosophy, that we're training for the end of the year, and that's all they care about. John Scallon from Minnesota. Interesting story. Gymnastics tends to be a lifelong sport, but this kid didn't start gymnastics till the 10th grade and basically spent the whole first year just doing circles on pommel horse, and here he is, one of the best workers in the country. Good routine. Good routine from the pommel horse specialist.
Scallon, the senior, out of Arlington Heights, Illinois.
And this is what makes horse so difficult. Watch the hands. They got to be just in the right spot, and there is not a lot of room to put those hands on the horse. So if you're off just a little bit, and that's what makes horse so hard, and that's what makes you so happy when you stay on. As you can see, Minnesota thrilled with that routine.
Golden Gophers starting off well. We will get the scores and the correction on those scores from earlier on the horse when we have them. Minnesota coming in ranked 9th in the nation on the pommel horse. Iowa 10th on the floor. And Nebraska 8th in the nation on the rings. As we head back over to the still rings, and C.J. Shaw, the senior from Houston, Texas. Season high for him, 14.8 at Minnesota and against Illinois in that meet just a few weeks ago. C.J. Schaaf, more opportunities for him with some of the illnesses, some of the injuries, more opportunity for him on the all-around and to continue to improve that score throughout the year, according to head coach Chuck Schmelka.
Yeah, and not only opportunity because of those injuries and illness, but he's made his own opportunity. Coach Schmelka said he is the best he's been since he's been at Nebraska. He's number 8 in the country in the all-around. And he's somebody that, like we mentioned earlier, really going to lean on, not just today, but really even as they get healthier down the stretch. He is going to have to do well for a team that doesn't have a ton of depth. C.J. Schaaf needs to really put up big numbers. Oh, no, and that's... And we talked about injuries. And I'm not going to speculate on what is wrong with him, but I've been around gymnastics a long time. And usually when somebody jumps off the rings like that from the middle of a strength moves, it means one of those muscles. And look at the torque on his shoulder right here. He grabs his left arm. Something didn't feel right. Hopefully it's not a tear. Hopefully something just got severely strained. But man, for a team that has just been struggling this year to get healthy, this could be a dagger for them.
A lot of pain for C.J. Schaaf, the senior out of Texas. We mentioned he came in ranked 8th in the nation on the all-around, and hard to watch the pain that he's going through right now.
And I've never experienced, and again, we don't know what happened to him, and we're hoping that it's just one of those strains or pulls that he can get worked out over the course of the next week or two. But, you know, I've talked to gymnasts who have had serious injuries like that have torn, and the best way they describe it is, you know, the feeling of Velcro tearing inside your shoulder. And again, hopefully that's not his instance, but I hate to see somebody come off and grab their shoulder the way he just did.
Well, and if you're Nebraska, as we talked about, they didn't bring a few gymnasts because of illnesses, but also some of the other injuries they've had. They may have to fill the spot of C.J. Schaaf throughout the rest of this meet with that injury if he is not able to return. Back over to the pommel horse, Ellis Mannin, the junior out of Indianapolis, ranked 5th in the nation on this event. Got a pommel horse title earlier this year against Oklahoma with a 14.95, and then had a career high at that point in this meet a year ago when he had a 15.4.
And he's one of those guys, you look at him chalking up over there, and he's got this just cool, calm demeanor. I mean, he is a concert violinist, so maybe he's just hanging out like he would be about to play the violin, just never seems to get rattled.
C.J. Schaaf will head to the locker room for the Cornhuskers, and it would appear like his day is done.
Yeah, we really got to hope that it's nothing serious, but certainly today it appears that his competition is over. And in the short term, Nebraska is most likely going to have to go with 5 guys. We talk about 5 scores, counting 5 guys up. I would be surprised if they don't face that later on in this competition.
If we get an update on the situation of C.J. Schaaf, we will give it to you, but we are awaiting Ellis Mannin on the horse to finish off and anchor the pommel horse for the Golden Gophers. Scores before him, Danny De Benedetto with a 14.05, and Stefan Beck at a 14.40.
And you can see the difference between good and great pommel horsemen by the amplitude of their swing. And just as I say that, I set him up for that one. I was about to say, look at the big swing he's got, and just got a little off. That was called a flared spindle, and just got a little off. Leg hit the end of the horse, and really, once your body, anywhere on your body other than your hands, collides with the horse, you're going to be in trouble. Watch right here. Hands got a little off. His left leg caught the end of that horse. Right there, unfortunate. And that's going to be a 1-point deduction. It's really critical, though, when you have mistakes, especially when you're capable of a big routine, that you get up there and you finish clean, because the team, even though they can drop a low score, they may need to count this. Good finish. That's unfortunate, because that is a big score Minnesota counts on, and we talked about in the open being maybe the single most important routine in the entire Minnesota squad in this competition, and unfortunately it was a miss tonight.
They may have to count that score of Ellis Manning. They had a couple other lower scores earlier in the rotation.
Another look at the dismount.
So Ellis Manning going all around this afternoon. We will see more of him, but not the start he was looking for on the horse. As we head back over to the floor, and Matt McGrath on senior day for the Iowa Hawkeyes. McGrath out of Wheaton, Illinois. Won a floor exercise title last week against the Illini here in Carver Hawkeye Arena. And he was third at Oklahoma, had a season-high 15.20 on the floor. As the judges continue to wait, we've seen the judges taking some time this afternoon, John. It seems impossible that it could be messing with some of the gymnasts out there.
You know, it's a little frustrating, and I'm sure it is for the gymnasts too. You know, floor 10s, and I haven't seen all the routines that they're taking time with, but you know, the judges know basically what the routine is that the gymnast is going to do before they go. They get a pre-comp form, it's called, that shows the routines and roughly the start value. That doesn't mean that's exactly what the gymnast is going to do, and the gymnast isn't necessarily required to do that, but it should give the judges a good idea what that start value is going to be, so theoretically they should be a little quicker coming up with that score. It doesn't seem to be the case here early in the competition. Maybe the judges too, like a gymnast, they're trying to find their legs and get in their groove too, but hopefully they can speed this up, because I know it's frustrating for guys like McGrath, who's waiting in the wings.
Now, we talked about Matt McGrath out with that knee injury, missed time, but able to return and continue to contribute. Really back to almost 100% according to J.D. Reeve, and it's good for a senior. Certainly on the vault. We talked to him earlier about what he had done on the vault. He had been so strong for the Hawkeyes on that apparatus, and he's so important in that. Get a good look at him.
They're the wheels for, you know, if you're a race car driver, they're your wheels, man, when you go to floor and you go to vault. So good to see him back, and he's described by his coaches as on this event and on vault as just one word: big. He goes big, and certainly being healthy, hopefully we get to see him go big right here.
That was the red shirt a season ago for Matt McGrath. He was an All-American in 2011. That was on vault, and here he is on the floor. See if he can win another vault floor exercise title as he did a week ago.
And he's going to come out big. Watch this first skill, one of the biggest on the floor exercise in the entire country. Beautiful.
How much deduction can you expect for that step, John?
That step can be as much as 3/10 of a point, unfortunately. Another big second pass, Arabian pike double front. That's what I'm talking about, big gymnastics. So far, very clean routine, but also big gymnastics. Should be the biggest start value for Iowa. Should start at 16.0. Another time, 16.0, and that's comprised basically of the 10 most difficult skills, the values tied to the 10 most difficult skills the gymnast does, plus 10 points in execution minus those deductions from the judges, like that step right there. But that was a great routine. It's probably going to be one of the best we will see today in this competition. Matt McGrath finishing strong for Iowa.
Well, we will get you the scores of Matt McGrath and the rest of the Hawkeyes. We'll take another look.
His Arabian tuck double front. That's his dismount. Tough dismount, especially because you can't see the landing until your feet are just about on the floor. There's another look at it right there.
The Iowa Hawkeyes done on the floor. We will come back for rotation number 2 in Iowa City in a moment. Back in Iowa City, Chuck Shimelka, head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Shimelka in his 5th season for this Cornhusker program. Was an assistant as well for the Cornhuskers before becoming the head coach and trying to get this team healthy for Nebraska. And then the head coach for the Golden Gophers, Mike Burns, 10th season for the Golden Gopher head coach. Former assistant here at Iowa and a graduate of Penn State in 1981. as we head to start the second rotation. Start with the Golden Gophers over on the still rings. It'll be Sean Bauer to lead things off for Minnesota. Junior out of St. Louis, Missouri. One still rings title already this season at a 15.1 against Oklahoma. See if he can be above 15 again for a Gopher team that needs to get some hit routines on the still rings.
Yeah, and rings, generally, rings is that safe event. Not like the pommel horse where it's so easy to fall. It's generally a safe event where you can hit. It's just a matter of how clean you can hit.
Minnesota comes in 5th in the nation on the rings.
You're going to see gymnasts get into strength moves two different ways generally. A swing to strength like he did just a moment ago, the swing to plunge, or they'll just lower their body into the strength move. That double front skill he did in between the rings at Yamawaki has become very popular on this event. 1.5 twist and double back. Now that's a D dismount. And one thing Mike Burns said about his rings team coming into the competition, he said, we have 5 out of 6 D dismounts on rings. And that's a big deal because A, when you have a C dismount, you lose some of your start value. But when you stick a D dismount, if you can stick it, as we see as Yamawaki to back up by straddle L, if you can stick that D dismount, it's worth 2 more tenths a bonus. So the difference between a D stuck dismount and a C dismount where you may take a step, and there's his D dismount, and he did unfortunately step, is a huge difference over the course of 5 routines. It can make a big difference for them and their team score.
We will see Sean Bauer throughout the afternoon for Minnesota, competing in 4 different events with the Golden Gophers. As we go over to the pommel horse and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Spanier up for Iowa.
And I believe this might be a change from their original lineup, Mike. And I saw him warming up before the competition, and he looked good. I actually asked Coach JD about him, and the one event where they may have had some uncertainty was horse, and it looks like he warmed up well, and he's going to get his shot.
6'1" freshman out of Gainesville, Florida. Season high was a 13.45 on horse. J.D. Reeve has said that kind of feels a little sick to his stomach when his team heads over to the pommel horse this season.
That's funny, because when I was a gymnast, I always felt sick to my stomach, too, when I went to the pommel horse.
Scores have not been what Iowa have wanted this year so far on the horse.
So far, this looks like a good routine. Very clean, good extension. Just the way you'd like to start off on the pommel horse.
Freshman in David Spanier stepping in, was not listed in that rotation, but as you said, added, John, for the Hawkeyes and gets the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's especially on horse. You always like to hit you like to hit every routine, Mike, obviously, but one event where you want to hit those routines early is horse, because you kind of bank a couple routines, get the momentum going. Another look, you can see the good extension he's got. Long, thin body lines is important on horse, unlike Matt McGrath, we saw on floor. He's more of a muscular, stocky guy. That usually doesn't translate to the pommel horse.
Good
nice
move
job
by J.D. Reeve to put him in the lineup. The freshman starting things off for the Hawkeyes in a key position, gets the job done, and see if Iowa can keep it going on the pommel horse as this second rotation continues. Iowa ranks 16th in the nation coming into this meet on the horse. There is room to gain some ground on a team like Minnesota, as the Gophers did not have their best rotation on pommel horse earlier this afternoon. Coming out of the first rotation, decent scores, but not what they're used to, as we head back over to the still rings. Zach Chase for the Golden Gophers. Another guy who missed a lot of time last year with an injury.
And someone who's kind of known for his vaulting, but certainly come on strong for Coach Mike Burns on the rings as well. An event that the Gophers feel like this is maybe their most improved event out of the 6. swing work. Here's the dismount, and that's what we're, oh, I was about to call it a stuck landing. To give you an idea of how much that step matters, if that step is big enough, it's a 3/10 deduction. But if he sticks it, it's a 2/10 bonus. So that's a 5/10 swing on one skill that he actually did well. So that's that can be a big swing. Judges may or may not have taken 3/10. They may have just taken a 1/10, but good job for Zach.
Over to the floor, and Austin Epperson for the Cornhuskers. Not seeing C.J. Schaaf after that injury that we saw from him on still rings. Huskers are waiting on the scores on the floor, but one score we do have, Josh Unger with a 14.0 for Nebraska. He had only done 3 floor exercise routines, not even in a meet, but in practice before this for Nebraska. So a big score at 14 for him, and Chuck Shamelka had said that he was happy putting out there, but was not expecting that kind of number.
Yeah, no, that's a good sign for Nebraska, especially with C.J. Schaaf going out in that first rotation. They need some guys to step up, and that's one thing that, talking to Chuck yesterday, he told me, he goes, look, I don't want this to be a pity party, and I'm not making any excuses, but he was trying to give me a clear picture of what they've had to deal with this year as far as the injuries, and they lost 3 guys for the season before the season really even got started. So it's been challenging, but the one thing he said, maybe a silver lining, is that it's given opportunities to other guys. And when those guys step up, the guys that have new opportunities step up and make the most of it, it can be huge for your team, especially if you can get healthy at the end of the year. Suddenly you've got guys you can go to and gives you depth.
Austin Epperson can do. Excuse me, it's Ethan Lotman out there for Nebraska.
And Lotman just had a awkward landing on that first pass, and I was a little worried he wasn't going to finish that routine. That was an uncomfortable way to come into the floor.
Lotman, a sophomore, the only Nebraska native on this roster for the Cornhuskers.
That's interesting because, you know, back in history, Nebraska had some really great teams, and most of their guys used to come from the state of Nebraska. So for him to be the only native on the squad is unusual. Two and a half twist dismount. Unfortunate mistake on that opening pass, probably going to cost him a point, but more importantly, it made me jump in my seat a little bit, and I'm just glad to see him get up from this. It's actually a whip half to double front, and you can see just that awkward stiff-legged landing.
We'll head back over to the still rings and the Golden Gophers. As Ethan Lotman wrapping up his time on the floor, and it's Paul Montague, sophomore out of Heartland, Wisconsin. See the number, 15.05 on the horse earlier, so it wasn't a 15.8, Jeff,
yeah,
but it was a 15.05. Still
that's a big score. That's a big score. Mike Burns said this kid is having a great season. Comes from Swiss Turners, just outside of Milwaukee, the same club that produced Olympic medalists Paul and Morgan Hom.
Paul has a personal best of 14.80 that came 2 weeks ago.
Oh, and there's another 1.5 twisting double back. Still can't find that stuck landing, but good job. Good routine for Paul.
So the Gophers and Mike Burns trying to win another tri-meet with Nebraska and Iowa. Here is Austin Epperson.
It's the most talked about guy that we haven't had on yet. I'll tell you what, this kid's getting some airtime. Nice start. Double. This guy's got some spring. You know, he did that triple twist kind of down the side as an unusual first pass. Here's a stuck landing on that double front. former junior national team member, as we mentioned, had to come back from that serious wrist injury and really couldn't even bend his wrist and had to go through some really excruciating, intense physical therapy to just get his wrist to move again. Quite amazing to even just see him back out there. A lot of credit to him and his determination.
Epperson missed all of last year with that wrist injury. Still 3 years of eligibility after this season for the Huskers.
Doesn't look like a kid that's missed any time at all so far. Oh, and there's a double twist dismount, and you hate to see that because it's a double twist. It's an easy skill for him, easy. And I promise you, he does that because he can stick it, and he gave 2 hops away. He'll be kicking himself for that. There's a 1.5 twist punch front full. Those combinations are oh so important on this event. There's the double twist dismount. You see the 1, the 2. Who knows? He might have even had a step in there. But overall, a great performance.
We will await the score for him. We still have the only score on the floor is Josh Unger with that 14.00 as we go over to the horse and the Hawkeyes.
Doug Sullivan, I've known this kid since he was a little kid. He's not that much bigger anymore, but he came to my camp for many, many years, and he's just a great kid. Comes from St. Charles Gymnastics, coached by Tom Worth and Brian Lupo. And this is his event. He is made to swing pommel horse. And you can see why. Look at the extension. When you see a lot of space between his body and the body of the horse, that is a good sign.
We did see the space between his legs, though, John. What kind of deduction there?
You know, that's going to be 1 to 3. Every time you see those legs come apart, there's another one. Slight knee bend. Not a bad routine, though. Going to be one of the best of the day. I told a lot of coaches about him. You know, he's at our camp, and I saw him swing horse, and I know how important this event is in collegiate gymnastics. And I told a lot of people about him. I said, this is the guy you want to try to talk into walking onto your squad, and Iowa was very fortunate to get him.
Sullivan won a high school state title on horse in the state of Illinois back in his junior year.
Here's the dismount, a triple Russian, that's called, to a loop off. That angle of the body needs to be at least 45 degrees when he finishes that dismount. Very close.
There is C.J. Schaff, the senior. Ice on his shoulder, hoping that he can return at some point, but likely done for this meet. But he will be there to root on his teammates as they continue out on the floor here in the second rotation in this tri-meet in Iowa City.
And CJ is a senior this year, and you just hope that this is not how his collegiate career is going to end. Good to see him back out there and see that positive attitude. That has to be a good sign.
Heading over to the rings, and Steve Yachuk, the junior from Wisconsin, had a chance to talk with Steve before the meet. And John, we both did. You just love his personality, his energy, and you know he's ready to go for the Gophers.
Yeah, and I can't get that vision out of my head from this meet last year when he almost scared me out of the arena with this primal cheer after he hit his parallel bar routine and clinched the meet for the Golden Gophers. And you know, you talk about Ellis Manning, his teammate, being just kind of reserved and calm and never seems to show emotion. Yachuk is the other end of the spectrum, and I love it. You got to have kind of, I think, a mix of those types of guys, and he's a lot of fun to watch, and he does great gymnastics, too.
He may have had some of the best images of the season last year, not only in the meet at Lincoln, Nebraska between these 3 teams, but also in Minneapolis and the Big Ten Championships. When he hits a routine, you know he's going to go off. Absolutely,
and he's also from Swiss Turners. We talked about the home of the Homs and also his teammate Paul Montague. And he's got a good pedigree, so he's got a little bit of gymnastics left in his career, just a junior, so he's got 1 more year. And I know, no doubt, he wants to make his mark and help Minnesota take that next step. 3rd at the Big Ten last year. You know, they want to take that step to being second, to being first, obviously, and he'd love to do it within the next 2 seasons.
And we'll see him not only on the rings, but on the P-bars and the high bar. 15th in the nation on the high bar. Rings, out of those three, maybe his weakest routine, but it's still something he can hit over 15.
Yeah, and you know, he's up late in the lineup, but he's kind of a, hopefully he doesn't take offense to this, but he's a little bit of a scrawny guy to be good on rings. Usually see the big bulky guys, but he finds a way. He's got that secret strength. He's got that strength in his body that, you know, skinny guys usually don't have.
Had a career high a couple weeks ago with a 15.15.
Pressed to find a deduction. You know what we're looking for right here? 1.5 twist. And that's kind of like the sumo stuck landing. His feet were wider than his shoulders, which technically could be a deduction, but there is no question his feet did not move. Let's go. There's his press to handstand. Again, not the huge strength moves, not the Malteses that we see from the best in the country, but what he did was clean, and there you go. there's the chest pump that you like to see, Mike. Mike was actually chest pumping here in the booth. You just couldn't see it at home.
His coach, Mike Burns, as well, pumped up after that routine on the rings. That'll do it for rotation number 2. We will come back with scores and the overall team standings when we return. After the conclusion of our meet here in Iowa City, it's women's basketball as Minnesota takes on Northwestern. Coverage starts at 3:30 Eastern right here on BTN. Well, John, we take a look at the team scores so far, and at the moment it's the Iowa Hawkeyes after 2 rotations, 144.50 ahead of Minnesota with a 142.30, and then Nebraska has a 137.6. So currently Iowa leading the way, Minnesota in second.
Yeah, and we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit here with the jockeying of the Nebraska lineup. You know, these are unofficial scores, but that's approximately where these guys are. But it's early. That gives you kind of a, if you're running the mile, we've just got done with a quarter mile. And there's a lot of gymnastics yet to be had, but it looks like Iowa so far looking the best.
Hawkeyes did have to count a few scores they would not like to count on the horse, but a 15.25 for Doug Sullivan. We saw Doug Sullivan over there on the horse, so a great score for him.
No, that was
all
huge.
Unofficial scores at the moment, but that's the score we have on the board for Doug Sullivan.
Mike, we don't mind taking questionable facts and just making them true. That's what we do here. No, but Iowa certainly, if you just do the eyeball test, Iowa really looks like the better team after 2 events, but again, it's so early. You can't make any calls at this point.
Well, you have to give a lot of credit to Iowa, considering after 2 events to be in this position when the course has been giving them so much trouble this season. For them to be able to get it done and be on top, big for them. As we start off with the Hawkeyes on the rings, Cyrus Dobre-Moffett, redshirt sophomore out of Maryland, getting things going for Iowa on the still rings.
So we talk about pedigrees of great gymnastics. His mom competed for Romania, was a world champion and an Olympian for that country, one of the best countries in women's gymnastics in the entire world in history. And so he's got the gene pool to work with, that's for sure. Beautiful swing skill. Great start. Again, stuck landing. Iowa looks like their plan, the plan J.D. Reeves has from the beginning of the year, they're starting to take form. Not a huge start value on this routine, only a 15.1. So, you know, if he can end up in the mid-14s, that is a great score for that start value.
That would be a season high for him. It was a 13.95 last week for Cyrus. That was his season high. Would appear that would be better It's Nebraska over on the pommel horse. Travis Galat will be up next, a freshman. One of two freshmen really contributing for this Nebraska team, and Chuck Schemelka has said that they have been the key in the future, but they're also the key this year as well for a team with so many injuries.
They have become a key, and this is one guy in particular that he pointed to, and he said, quote, he's been thrust into action, and nothing could be more true than today when they've had these challenges. And interestingly enough, on the pommel horse, this could be a tough event for them because they already were thinking they may have to go with 5 guys up and 5 scores count because of the flu between Wyatt Aycock and Andy House, who were sick this week. They weren't sure if they'd be able to go. So it'll be interesting to see if they can even put 5 scores up.
Oh, and Andy House stayed home. Of course, he got in touch later and said that he was feeling all right, even though he's at home. How
convenient of him. Wait till your team gets out of town, and you know. No, I'm sure it was bad. I know that flu has been ripping through these teams this season, so it's been challenging. So far, you can see the difference though. Remember Doug Sullivan and the big long swing and the space between his body and the horse. This is good, but you can see the difference between good and great. Come on, come on. Oh, and he just cannot quite hang on to the end of that routine. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do, and you can see assistant coach Jim Hartung right there, Olympic gold medalist, coming in and helping him out. This dismount is actually supposed to go around 3 times. Be interesting to see if the judges or the coaches have him get back up or just have him finish the routine. Obviously, if he gets back up, they're going to take a point off for the fall, but if he doesn't get back up, he doesn't have a dismount. Looks like he is just going to finish up there.
So Travis Galat done over on the horse, and it will be Justin Morinishi, also known as Yoshi Morinishi, more commonly known among his teammates as Yoshi Morinishi.
I didn't even write down Justin. I just put Yoshi down now. I just figured that was it.
Senior out of Chesterfield.
Trying to wave down the judges right there. They were looking for him ready to go, and they couldn't find the gymnast.
He had a 15.05 in the NCAA qualifier last year on floor. Also tied for 3rd against Oklahoma with a season high 14.9 this season.
Another triple twist for the first pass. Double twisting front, punch front half. Tough combination. Almost couldn't find his feet. Giving away a few landing deductions, but other than that, good routine. These routines tend to be marathons these days. They're trying to cram in as much difficulty in a short amount of time. Nice 2.5 dismount. So the Gophers trying to stay toe-to-toe with the Iowa Hawkeyes, who continue to hit routines.
Oh, and Yoshi Morinishi, one more look.
There's the double twisting front punch, Brandy. A little low and a little cockeyed on that punch front with a half. Really need to try to keep that in line. That was clean combo right there.
Gophers needed a hit routine from Morinishi after a 13.2 for Danny DiBenedetto in the first one up on floor. And Mike Burns talked about improving that hit percentage for Minnesota. But we'll head over to the rings, and Jack Boyle, sophomore again out of Naperville, doing the all-around and third on still rings last week with a personal best 15.00. You see his scores from earlier. 2 hit routines coming into the still rings.
That right there is tough. Back uprise to legs together plunge. We've seen it in the straddle position, and there's the Maltese. Haven't seen a lot of those so far in this competition. That's where you start to rack up the big bonus. Does another one. Shoulders a little bit high. Paused a little long in that inverted hang, and he's got more. Back uprise, inverted cross. Tough to do those strength parts late in the routine.
Is that just because you're wearing down at that point?
Oh yeah, you're gassed, man. You're gassed. Full twist and double layout. I am impressed with Iowa so far in this competition. They are strong. They've added difficulty. Here's a swing sequence. Piked Yamawaki, tucked Yamawaki, right to the back uprise planche. Look at the dismount, full twisting double layout. Really the only obvious thing missing is that stuck landing.
Go back over to the floor and the Golden Gophers.
Zach Liebler was sick last week, just kind of getting back healthy. And that looked pretty good. Good start.
Freshman breaking into what is a senior-laden team for Minnesota, maybe one of the most senior-laden teams for Mike Burns and the Golden Gophers, but contributions from Liebler throughout this year.
Yeah, it's Mike did mention that they have a lot of experience on this team, probably the most since 4 years ago when they lost a bunch of seniors and were replaced by this bunch of seniors. So a good opportunity for Mike, hopefully, to keep creeping up the Big Ten standings. Zach's a Minnesota kid, trains at Great Northern Gymnastics. Coached by a former Golden Gopher as well, Ron Hill. Oh, and there you go. That is a triple twist, and he nails it. That's a tough landing just to stay on your feet generally, but he ices it. And that's going to be that 2/10 bonus we've talked about. There's a 2.5 twist combination into a punch front half. Clean. And there you go. He must have learned that from Steve Yachuk. How to celebrate after a good performance. Outstanding job from Zach Liebler.
Heading over to the pommel horse, Wyatt Aycock. He was a question coming into this meet, dealing with a lot of different injuries and illnesses, but he's out there competing on the horse, and they needed him after C.J. Schaaf went down.
They did need him, and you know, he was sick as well, had the flu this week, and wasn't really sure if he's going to be able to go. It was kind of a game time decision, but they need him. Oh. And that is one of the toughest things on pommel horse. When you swing on one pommel, that's where really the biggest risk is taken. When you take your hands off the leather and you put them onto just a couple square inches of that wooden pommel, you are taking a chance, and that's where the big bonus comes from, but the risk that something like that's going to happen. Unfortunate.
John, did you have to deal with flu-like symptoms at any point in your career while trying to do the horse?
I did have one competition where I wasn't well. Let's just put it that way. I managed to get through for the most part, but it's not a fun thing, especially in gymnastics where your balance and things are so important. You can really mess with your head. Oh, that's too bad, man. That was other than that fall, which obviously is a big deal, that routine it was a nice swing, good difficulty. Nebraska really needed that one. Here's a look at it. And literally looks like nothing's wrong. And that's what stinks about pommel horse, is things can be so perfect and so on, and if your finger is in the wrong spot on the pommel, you're off. 1 point deduction.
Head back over to the Still Rings and the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's at Lockton. Can he keep a strong day going for Iowa? Locked in, a sophomore out of Hawthorne Woods, Illinois. Second on Still Rings with a 14.75 at Oklahoma, and you see that 15.15 on floor for him to lead the way. He could be up for winning that floor exercise title.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of those guys that J.D. Reeves said he's really stepped up this year, coming into his sophomore season. He's made some great strides. And he's going to be leaned on heavily as he heads into his junior and senior season.
After 2 rotations, the scores, take a look. Iowa still with that lead over Minnesota, and Nebraska has some ground to make up. Let's go, Matt.
Beautiful. Great series of strength moves. 2 Malteses, then finishes that off with back upright legs together to launch again. Little correction in that handstand. Another nice 1.5 twist. Dismount. That is a step up routine right there. That is the next level of difficulty. Great strength. Start value should be at a 16.0, one of the higher start values done on the Still Rings, as we see his swinging skills again into that straddle plunge. We've seen a lot of these dismounts. 1.5 twisting, double tuck. Blind landing. When I say blind, you don't see that floor till your feet are pretty much touching it, which makes it really tough to stick. We did see Steve Yachuk stick one earlier, but that's unusual.
Over to Sean Bauer for Minnesota on the floor. Bauer in that 5th spot for the Golden Gophers, junior out of St. Louis. He is ranked nationally on the floor and the vault, 13th in the nation on both of those apparatuses, 15.05 each of the last 2 weeks for Sean Bauer.
That's a nice score. Anytime you get into the 15s, you're starting to get to scores that, I call those scores that are going to help you win. You know, if you're in the 14s, those are going to be the ones that kind of help you maybe not lose. But then you start to get lower than a 14, you're starting to look at scores that are going to, quite frankly, help you lose. So anytime you see a team starting to put up 15s after 15, they're good, and they're going to be right there at the end of the day. Sean is out of St. Louis Gym Center in St. Louis. Those floor judges are still getting it together over there. Here we go with Sean. Beautiful piked Arabian double front. Stuck landing. And there's a Thomas again. We've seen him tucked all day today, but that one was done in the laid out position.
Through this routine. Bauer comes comes in with a personal best of 15.45.
One more pass. It's the 2.5 twist. We've seen it before. We have not seen it stuck yet. And there it is, on cue. I teed him up for that one, Mike. Nicely done. And Minnesota doing what they got to do, because we know what Iowa's doing on rings. They are putting on the pressure, and Minnesota is answering on the floor exercise.
Love it.
Here's the double twisting front. Very popular combination. And here we look at the dismount one more time. 2.5 twist, tough landing that he makes look easy. It's going to be a big score. And there's Steve Yachuka's teammate going, I taught you how to cheer like that. Nicely done.
You speak about Steve Yachuk kind of leading this Minnesota team. He does it animated, but also his leadership as a junior on that squad. Now we go to Matt McGrath on the still rings for Iowa, closing out this rotation. Tied for 7th on the rings at that Windy City invite with a 14.8 earlier this year.
Matt really known for floor and vault, but rings is an event that he has really worked hard on and really been important to this Iowa lineup. Anchoring them now. Nice combination of strength and swing. Can Iowa answer with a stuck dismount like Minnesota just finished off their floor exercise? There's a double twisting double back. First time today, can't quite pull off the stuck landing. That is a tough dismount though. 2 twists and 2 flips in the air. Nicely done.
But a smile to end it for Matt McGrath, and we will see if the Hawkeyes still own the lead here after 3 rotations when we return to Iowa City. BTN goes where you want, when you want it, with BTN to Go, presented by Auto Owners Insurance. Watch the network on your computer, tablet, or smartphone. BTN to Go is now available to all major subscribers who receive BTN through their cable, satellite, or participating video providers. To learn more, visit btntogo.com. Also available in the App Store and on Google Play. 3 rotations down here in Carver Hawkeye Arena, and now we see the switch as the teams will move over to the vault, the parallel bars, and the high bar. Chuck Shemelka had to watch C.J. Schaaf go down with that injury and out for the remainder of this meet. His team will start on the high bar in rotation 4, Minnesota on the parallel bars, and then Iowa on the vault. Go and take a look back at the horse and Ethan Lotman from the last rotation for Nebraska.
Beautiful swing. Technically exactly how it's supposed to be done. Break right there. Other than that, perfect. What Nebraska desperately needed. Little break on the dismount.
Great afternoon in Iowa City to catch some gymnastics, and big weekend. The women's gymnastics team in action as well. And Minnesota trying to pull off another victory, winning their last 2 meets and trying to win their 2nd consecutive tri-meet with Nebraska and Iowa. to the high bar to start things off. Nebraska comes in ranked 10th in the nation on the high bar. Antonio Castro, second freshman that we talked about, the freshmen who are key for the Cornhuskers this season with the injuries that they've had to deal with. And Castro and Travis Galat, who we will see next on the high bar, have been those two freshmen. Castro comes in with a season high of 13.7 on this event. Freshman out of Pinecrest, Florida.
This meet, about halfway through, it really has turned into a two-team race. But Nebraska really important, I think, that they continue to hit routines. Very intricate handwork. See the full turn to what's called the L grip. Outstanding start. Not a lot of difficulty, but clean. And let's get some positivity going for the Nebraska Cornhusker bench here. Let's see them hit 6 for 6 on this event. Just what the doctor ordered, rather. Nice combination right there. Full twisting double tuck.
Well, John, you mentioned Nebraska may not have a chance to win this tri-meet, but they're still building to those championships in March in their home gym in the Devaney Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. So they want to get consistency. Without
a doubt, Mike. In the sport of gymnastics, you feel as good as your last routine. And for a team, you kind of feel as good as your last event. So they have some problems, obviously, with injuries, losing C.J. Schaaf. But more than anything, they've got to hit routines. They've got to stay positive, and they've got to continue to build.
Senior Nate Fortunato up on the parallel bars to start things off for Minnesota. Has not been able to hit a routine over 14 yet on this apparatus, but just there close with a 13.95 last week.
Nate's brother Aaron was also a Golden Gopher. Did an outstanding job. Oh, and we saw him miss his hand on that front toss. Tough skill. You don't actually see your hands grab the bar, and so easy just to miss a finger. Don't grab the bar quite right. Unfortunate.
Just about a 4-point difference now with Minnesota leading over Iowa in the overall team score.
And he did the old tripod landing right there. The forehead and the 2 feet. Unfortunate finish for Nate. But again, Minnesota can, and you can see right there, you see him grab the bar with his hand, but the bar wasn't quite in his hand yet. You grab the bar too early, that's exactly what happens. Your fingers kind of hit. A little bit dangerous sometimes. You can dislocate a finger pretty quickly.
Cyrus Dobre-Moffitt on the vault for Iowa.
Oh, look out. Iowa taking advantage. Nice double twist. Nails the landing. Keep in mind, Minnesota can drop their low scores, but they don't have any more margin for error. And it looks like Iowa's going to continue to come at them.
And Iowa needs the scores on the vault as Minnesota ranked 2nd in the nation, while Iowa ranked 9th in the nation on vault. So the Hawkeyes know they have to keep up with Minnesota, even though the Gophers haven't been on the vault yet. As we stick with the vault, and Iowa, as we mentioned, ranked 9th in the nation. Brandon Field, the junior out of New Zealand, up next. Didn't compete in the last 2 meets for the Hawkeyes. Did have a 14.25 on vault at Windy City and a personal best of 14.9.
And he's going to do the same vault that we saw from Cyrus, the double twist. He's going to be hard-pressed to do it better, though. That was about perfect from Cyrus. This is a good situation for Iowa to be in. They just need to land on their feet, as you mentioned, about a 4-point differential between Minnesota and Iowa, Mike, and this is a great opportunity for them to close the gap. Oh, and we've got 2 stuck landings in a row. We're lucky to see 1 stuck landing on an event total out of 6 vaults, and here we got 2 for Iowa. You did see him go outside the lines just a little bit on the landing. 1 foot was over the line, I believe, which is going to be a 1/10 deduction. But look at clean in the air. I think he's even pointing his toes in the air. I used to do that vault, Mike, and I think I just said a prayer before I went and just hoped I landed on my feet.
3 consecutive hits to start on the vault for Iowa. As we'll head back over to the high bar. Ethan Lotman for the Cornhuskers.
Did a nice horse routine for them in the first half of the competition. Again, just if you're Nebraska, let's hit routines. Let's just make some good things happen. Let's keep the positivity. Unfortunately, Chamberlain had a really rough routine. Put up a low score, so after a good start from Castro, second guy up, not so good.
Lotman came in 6th place last week at Michigan on the high bar. Tkachev didn't quite get that tip to go over the bar. Working those L-grip giants. That's a unique skill. It's called an endo and an L-grip position. Focus in double A out. All right, a hit routine. Here's the dismount. Focus in double A out. And you kind of get a sense a little bit from the Nebraska bench that the wind has been taken out of their sails a little bit, and it's unfortunate. As you see the scores after 3 rotations, that 4-point difference, just about a 4-point difference between Minnesota and Iowa. Nebraska certainly feeling the effects of losing C.J. Schaaf. But as we talked about, they continue to build throughout the season. So Nebraska will still compete hard and put together some good routines. But Iowa on vault, trying to gain some ground on Minnesota.
And it's going to come, I really do think it's going to come right down to the last event, maybe even the last routine, copyright last year's competition in Lincoln, Nebraska. And if anybody is capable of closing a gap, it's that guy right there, whose feet we are looking at right now, Matt McGrath.
Matt McGrath, we've talked about him earlier. He was an All-American in 2011 on vault, finished 5th at the NCAA championships. Let's see what he can put together here.
Talked about him being big, and this vault is big. One of my favorites, the handspring double front. They call it a double, but he actually flips 3 times from board to landing. Oh, and done as well as you can do it. I don't know if I've seen Matt do a better vault than that one right there. That is fun. That is how you love to do it. Look at this. It's really not this easy, people. Opens up. Come on, Matt. You got to stick that, my man. It's right there. Just stick the landing. Stop teasing us.
Senior day for Matt McGrath. Didn't quite stick it, but still a great finish on vault in his final meet at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
That's the way you want to go out. That's going to be probably the best vault we'll see today.
As we head over, Minnesota trying to build on their lead, hold off J.D. Reeve and his Iowa Hawkeyes, and earn another victory here in the regular season.
And J.D. has got to like where he's at right now. Regardless of the outcome of this meet, I am very impressed with Iowa. I don't get to see them every day in the gym. I don't get to see every one of their meets, but you know, they look like pros. They're coming in, they know what they got to do, they got a job to do. They look very much in control of their gymnastics, which is really important. You can tell teams that go up and hope to hit, and you can tell teams that go up and know they're going to hit. And Iowa looks like one of those teams that they know they're going to hit, it's just how well.
The score came in quickly for Matt McGrath. 15.1 on the vault for McGrath. And that anchor spot, the high score for Iowa, is Ellis Manning set to go on the P-bars.
And I don't know if Minnesota's watching, but you know, Iowa put up all of their scores were above 14s, if not close to 15s. And that's going to be tough to match on the parallel bars. And we saw Minnesota have a mistake early. So they got very little margin for error. I would be shocked if Iowa doesn't close that gap significantly after this rotation.
The only unfortunate thing for Iowa, though, is that Minnesota will close the meet on the vault, and that is by far their best event as a team.
Yeah, that's the equalizer. In not all events is easy to get those 15s like we talked about as other events. So, you know, pommel horse, you don't see a lot of 15s. Other events, maybe like the floor exercise, even the vault, sometimes you're going to see high 14s, 15s more frequently. Minnesota still has that event in their back pocket. So, again, it could come down to that last vaulter.
Ellis Manning, second last week on the P-bars with a season-high 14.75. That was one of the best efforts he's had on this apparatus in his career. So it takes a few moments to get set. Bring you an all-around update as we go. C.J. Schaff no longer in the all-around, but Jack Boyle and Ellis Manning competing all-around this afternoon.
The waiting game is over, and he looks cool, looks calm. Let's see if he can put it together. Front toss, that time done from a back uprise. We saw Nate do that in the first event. The first guy up had a mistake. Man doesn't smooth. Nice routine. Trying to go toe-to-toe with the Hawkeyes vaulters. That should hang right in there. Should be a solid 14 score, probably an upper 14. Just what the Gophers needed. Here's the handwork we talked about. Literally, if like the pommel horse, if a finger is in the wrong direction, you grab the bar too early, rather, you're going to come off. There's a double pike. You see a lot of gymnasts doing that for the dismount. It's a devalued skill. You don't see a lot of those stuck, though, however. If you can stick that double pike, you're in rare company.
And back over to the high bar, Josh Unger for Nebraska, junior out of Massachusetts. And you see that 14.00 on the floor for Unger. Surprise score for him. And that's got to be a good note for Nebraska on a meet where maybe things have not gone their way, that he was able to score that high. What is really just his fourth floor exercise routine of the year.
Another release combination. Release moves are really what high bar is about. You're going to see a lot of the in-bar skills and the pirouetting skills, but it really comes down to how much risk do you want to take. How many times are you going to let go and try to re-catch that bar?
Josh's personal best on this event a year ago was a 14.85 in this meet.
There we go. Unger continues to step up for the Cornhuskers, trying to get some energy, trying to get that positivity. Good job. This is a great look. You can see the grips they all wear. And there's a dowel actually in those grips. Great look at the release moves. He disappears from the screen. You got to keep those dowels over the bar if you're going to hang on. There we go.
So head back over to the vault in the Iowa Hawkeyes. William Albert, junior out of Ontario. Vault been his only event this year for Iowa.
And this was earlier, obviously. Another double twist. Just give you an idea of how consistent the Hawkeyes were on that event. Great look in the slow-mo. Just giving away a few small hops, but outstanding job for the Hawkeyes on vault.
Well, John, we talked about Steve Yachuk and what he did last year on the parallel bars in this meet in Lincoln, Nebraska. The 15.45 that led to that celebration. You mentioned it to him earlier today, reminded him of that routine. See if he can do it again.
I told him I fully expected him to do that and to give us the primal cheer at the end, so we'll see. We'll see if he can do it. This event is just creeping along. We see a lot of waiting from the Gopher gymnasts. See those pads on Steve's arms. That usually means he's going to do something good. The more pain you inflict upon yourself as a gymnast on parallel bars, I feel like the more difficulty you're trying to do.
He has won P-Bars title already this year against Illinois and Nebraska, winning a 14.95. See if he can go for another.
Right there.
John, is there a time limit between skills?
Not really, no. You want to keep a good rhythm, though. You know, obviously you don't want to stay in one place too long. Obviously stopping on the bars is a no-no. It's like high bar, even though you change directions, you want to keep a good rhythm. And just as I said, it's so tough to stick that double pike on cue. Steve Yachuk answers another stuck D dismount. We saw him do it on the rings. Great look at the hands. It's really a science project, too, that the gymnasts do on the parallel bars to get their grip, to make sure they're not slipping off when they go underneath those bars. They'll put honey, they'll put sugar water. They all have their own formula to make sure they're not slipping off the bars. And it's such a big part of the event now. You got to be able to hang on.
Well, tell us your formula, John. What did you do?
I used to spit in my hands a little bit and just hope. Hope.
So this is why I should avoid shaking hands with you before.
Put a little
me.
hope on the bar and just go for it.
Well, one more routine coming up for Minnesota on the P-Bars. Matt Fry, senior out of Bradenton, Florida. Last week, this was the only event that he competed on because he hyperextended both knees. And what did he do? He set a career high with a 15.4.
Yeah, I think I saw Mike Burns in the sidelines pushing on his knee the wrong direction, too, hoping for another career high. No, that's impressive, man. It's sometimes, you know, those little obstacles, those little challenges, kind of, they give you that laser focus sometimes. It makes you realize, you know what, it narrows your focus and it brings the best out of you. You don't like it, you don't want it to have it happen, but every once in a while something good comes out of it.
Minnesota, there's Mike Burns. Mike Burns, certainly one of the more animated coaches you'll see in Big Ten men's gymnastics, and that certainly flows through the rest of the team as well as we talk about Steve Yachuk and see some of the celebrations we've seen throughout this meet.
Oh, for sure. Mike's got a great positive attitude. He brings a lot of energy to his team, and you know, you want to be that guy that, you know, you can be positive, you can have some fun with your team, but when it push comes to shove and the rubber hits the road, you know, you can be serious and you can get on them and you can push them when you need to. So the key, I think, is really finding that balance, and Mike seems to have found it.
Steve Yachuk, before Matt Fry, 15.3. So not quite the score he did a year ago, but still a great score for Steve Yachuk.
And that's huge. And the reason why is you got to start to look at what Iowa got on vault, and I see 14-7, 14-9, 14-8, 14-6, and that 15-1. So Steve Yachuk's score higher than all of them. That's big.
Matt Fry, can he outdo his teammate?
Nice peach to handstand right there, and the skills like this are why you put that water and that honey and that sugar water on the bar. This could be another career high, Mike. Just a hop on the landing. I was hard-pressed to find anything wrong with that routine other than that. Minnesota, with Iowa pressing, doing some great vaults, answers the bell. And I do believe they may maintain that lead after the fourth rotation. What a clutch performance.
4 rotations down, and Minnesota with Matt Fry in the final routine on P-bars.
There's that double pike. Can't quite pull off the stuck landing like his teammate Steve Yachuk, but nicely done nonetheless.
And we'll move on to rotation number 5. Iowa will be on the parallel bars, Minnesota on the high bar, and Nebraska on the vault when we return to Iowa City for more men's gymnastics on BTN. Don't miss any exciting action in the Big Ten. Go to video.btn.com this week and check out the Big Ten Digital Network's upcoming schedule. Video.btn.com for more exciting Big Ten action. Iowa Hawkeye fans like what they've seen so far from this Hawkeye team, and Iowa still behind the Minnesota Golden Gophers in this meet, but they are within striking distance. And John, this is a tri-meet. We always talk about building to the Big Ten championships, but how big would a victory for Iowa be in this meet? What would it mean to this team if they could get a win over Minnesota and Nebraska?
I think, you don't want to overstate it, but I do think it would be huge. And the reason I think it would be huge is because Minnesota is having a good meet. And if you can beat another team when they're on their game, it certainly says something about you and where you're at. So, I think Iowa would, I think they'd put this a notch on their belt if they can pull off this win. But nonetheless, both these teams, Minnesota and Iowa in particular, looking very, very good. They are heading in the right direction as they head into the home stretch of the season.
Well, it is a 3.5-point difference coming into this 5th rotation between Minnesota and Iowa, with Minnesota still leading. As we start on the vault, Antonio Castro, the freshman out of Florida for the Huskers.
He started them off well on high bar. Can he do the same thing here on vault? Full twisting, laid out Sukahara. Big step to the side there. We saw him go over the line. Not a big start value, but he does it clean. Another look right here. 1 twist. We saw 2 twists from many of the Iowa gymnasts. I'm sure Castro working on that in his home gym.
Nebraska on the vault for this rotation. We'll see more of them in a moment. Minnesota on the high bar, and Iowa in their home gym on the parallel bars. It'll be Matt Lockton to start things off. Iowa ranked 9th in the nation on the P-bars coming in.
A unique mount right there, clear up on the side of the bar to a handstand. Giant to a back with a half to upper arms. We've seen that a couple times today already. Clean start for Iowa. This meet is not over. 3.5 points. When you think a fall from the apparatus can be a point, plus the difficulty of the skill. So, Minnesota's on high bar, very precarious event. Iowa's certainly not out of this. Great look at the underbar work and the importance of that grip. There's the giant to a back with a half. clean. And there's the double pike. Almost pulls off the stuff.
That locked in with his first routine for Iowa on the P-bars in this rotation. And back over the vault and the Cornhuskers. It's coming up next, it will be Josh Unger. Travis Galot did go before him.
Josh comes from Tim Daggett's Gymnastics out on the East Coast. Tim Daggett, obviously a teammate of the assistant coach on Nebraska, Jim Hartson, gold medalist in 1984, does a great job out there.
So we will await the vault of Josh Unger and take a look at the overall team scores. As we mentioned, just under a 4-point lead for Minnesota over Iowa. Nebraska with that 277.15. Minnesota going to try to hang on to this lead and earn another regular season victory. Unger is set on the vault.
Ooh, another double twist, real short on the landing. Looks like he did go over that line, I believe, with his right foot, which is going to be a deduction, plus that big step. Judges can find all kinds of ways to take deductions right here. It looked clean, it looked good. Lacked a little rotation, so landing short with the chest down, stepping sideways. You're gonna add that all up. Really looks like a vault. I mean, he does it well, but that's gymnastics for you right there. Just a little off can result in a whole lot of trouble.
As we head back over to the parallel bars and the Iowa Hawkeyes. As actually we will head over to the high bar. Paul Montague for Minnesota. Paul Montague Jr., the sophomore, went off a season high last week of 14.0 on this event.
And ironically enough, Mike Burns says he's very good on this event, but he doesn't like it. And that's not totally unusual in gymnastics. Sometimes events they're just not friendly to you, but he seems to nonetheless find a way to put together some good gymnastics. Two Tkachevs. There's a third, and he catches him the cross arm. A little trouble on that giant out. Routine. Mike Burns right there loves the stuck landing, pointing it out, making sure judges are fully aware that those feet did not move. You know, Mike talked about if he's been happy with the scores his team has gotten this season, and he said, you know, I am seeing how we haven't hit more than 80% yet. There's a great look at the last release move, the Tkachev catch and cross arm, and here's the stuck landing. Considering the fact they haven't really hit, there's Mike pointing out those feet. Considering they haven't hit, their scores have been good, but he wants to see the team hit over 80%. If he can do that, I think he'll be thrilled with the scores.
Over to Emmanuel Monroy on the parallel bars for Iowa. Sophomore out of Texas. His season high came at the Windy City Invite of 14.2.
You saw that first skill. Those first two skills are peach half to a peach, very low. Need to finish those in a handstand. That can be a fairly significant deduction.
Had locked in before Emmanuel with 14.15 to start things off for Iowa in this event.
Not bad, not a great routine. He knows he missed some of those handstands. We jump over to vault. That was Aycock finishing up his vault for Nebraska, but back to parallel bars. A good routine, a lot of difficulty, and I think he just refines those peach skills that we saw in the beginning of the routine. That's going to be a big score for the Hawkeyes as we look at Aycock's vault again. Just the single twist that we saw from Castro.
almost done on the vault are the Cornhuskers, but we'll head back over to the high bar in Minnesota. We'll see Sam Wright, senior out of Colorado, and he's a familiar face around here in Iowa, a former Iowa gymnast who transferred to Minnesota. And Mike Burns has said he's become one of our best gymnasts on high bar.
Yeah, interesting story. You know, just didn't work out at Iowa. Those things happen, and you know, his opportunity may have disappeared at that point to be a collegiate gymnast, but he made the most of it, called Mike up and said, hey, can I try to come and walk on the team? And Mike said, sure, and here he is. And I think Mike is pleased to have him. Nice Yamawaki to a hanger. That combination was called true release smooth combination. And he really struggled before college in his gymnastic career, had numerous surgeries, something like a half dozen surgeries that he had to work and battle through. So he has earned his stripes and earned the place he is on this team right now.
This is the third career meet for the Gophers.
And Minnesota's just rolling.
It's been over 14.5 in his previous 2 meets. Could be another one right there.
Look at the handwork. You saw his full over. There he goes. That's the dismount.
Sam Wright for Minnesota, back in the gym he used to call home after transferring to the Gophers from the Hawkeyes. Adding to that score for Minnesota, Lewis Klein on the vault, not expected to compete today, but had to step in with the injury to C.J. Schaaf.
Next man up. Another Sukahara with the full twist. Pretty big, man. I'm thinking that guy's ready for a double twist. That was a nice vault.
Klein has been dealing with a shoulder and ankle injury. You see the tape on his ankle.
Nice pop off the vault table. Great amplitude, great form in the air. Looked a little piked. It looked like he easily could have stretched that out a little bit more.
First look at Mitchell Landau on the day. Junior out of Iowa City. Local kid. A season high of 14.9 at Oklahoma, which was good for second in that meet.
We talked about the pressure that Iowa put Minnesota under when they were on the parallel bars. Now Minnesota seems to be returning the favor with some good high bar routines. See if Iowa can answer with some hit sets of their own. There's a peach to 1 bar. I haven't seen that yet. Needs to pause on that 1 bar, however. Nice to pelt from the end of the bars to the middle. Great lines, and that's what JD loves about this kid. Nice job. Other than that break early on the peach to 1 bar, which could be fairly significant, that was a beautiful routine.
J.D. Reeve has said that he's been more consistent and more mature this season for the Hawkeyes.
Nice giant to handstand. There's the to pelt from the end to the middle. Grip is so important. I know we talked about it, but that trick is so hard to hang on to.
And back over to vault. Just a few moments ago was Travis Galat for Nebraska.
We saw Matt McGrath do this same vault. Let's see if Travis can pull out the same quality. It's the handspring double front. He's on his feet, but man, that was a patella stretcher right there. Deep squat on the landing. Watch it right here again. 2 flips once he comes off the table. Now watch how low he is right there. and manages to stay on his feet. Great fight. Should be a decent score. We'll get hit a little for that low landing, but great effort.
Over to Ellis Mannon on the high bar for Minnesota. Ellis with a personal best this season of 14.2 a couple weeks ago.
Don't see too many of those German giants. My shoulder's hurt just watching.
Did actually skip 2 events, so no all-around this afternoon for Ellis Mannon.
Has a unique dismount, double front flipping dismount with a 1.5 twist. Love it. That's kind of old school. That's 80s style right there. I love it. Very unique, tough dismount too. I tried to do that for a few years and it wasn't pretty, Mike. It just brings me back to nightmares.
Is it commonplace in the 80s? Is that why it's 80s style?
Exactly. I'm old. It was a great look at it. Double front, 1.5 twist, almost pulls out that stuck landing. Mike wanted it too. I love watching Mike's face.
Well, up next on the high bar for the Golden Gophers will be Steve Yachuk. We talked about him throughout this meet. This, by far, his best event. He comes in ranked 15th in the nation on high bar, and we'll get to him in a few moments. As Iowa trying to come from behind against Minnesota. Minnesota, though, with some solid routines in the high bar, and then we mentioned before, coming up in the vault, they're going to be able to get even more points. This may be Minnesota's meet to lose at this point. We saw Steve Yachuk last year on the high bar have a series of meets in a row where he did have falls on the high bar. He did recover and continue to perform well later in the season. But John, when you have issues like Steve did last year, how does that get into a gymnast's head when you've had a few falls on the high bar?
Well, it can, I should say, make a difference. There's confidence in this sport that I think, you know, it's like basketball. You put up enough bad shots and you miss, you start questioning whether you should take another one. But this kid's confident, and I know anything that might have happened last year, it's more what's happened recently. And if he's hitting in practice and he's hitting in meets this season, he's going to be okay. And he better be okay, because this is a new routine for him. He's got a new big release that I asked Coach Mike Burns. It's called the Coleman. It's a double back over the bar with a full twist. He tries to re-grab the bar. And I asked Mike if he was going to do it. He said he wasn't totally sure. It's been a little bit inconsistent, but as well as they've been doing, they have some hit routines. I think this is a perfect opportunity for him.
Steve took 3rd in the Big Ten Championships on high bar.
There's a Tkachev half turn. I don't think he's going to do the big Coleman. Playing it a little bit safe. Right in your living room. Here's the dismount. And he's 3 for 3, baby, like a toothpick in a club sandwich. Unreal. The guy cannot take a step. Unbelievable landings today from Steve Yachuk. This is Tkachev. That's the first one he did. Second one he catches in cross arm. There's the recatch of the cross arm recatch on that second Tkachev. And there's the dismount. Nice in the air. I mean, come on. You get a little more excited than that, Gopher fans. That was big time.
Steve Yachuk may be stealing all the excitement out of the building. His celebration after that one will wait his score, but some other good scores for Minnesota on the high bar. Over to Jack Boyle to close things out on the parallel bars for Iowa. Boyle at the Windy City Invite at a 14.4 on P-bars. He was a high school All-American on this event.
Needs a big one right here. He has a 16.3 start value, big start value. Iowa needs a clean routine if they can keep this close. Nice Peach to 1 bar. Peach half, a little bit of trouble there in the handstand. Manages to get through a tough combination. Could be a good score. Just giving away a little bit here and there in the handstands, whether he's arching or taking a step, but he can make it all up right here. If he can stick the landing, not quite. That should be right around that 15 range, and that's going to be big for Iowa. They need that to be a 15. They need to be within striking distance of Minnesota, which means they can't have given up too much more ground if they want to pull this thing off.
That does it for rotation 5. One more look here at Jack Boyle.
And there's the Straley back with a half. There's another Tapelt. We saw that earlier. There's his double pike. Really, the only thing, nothing major. The judges just kind of nickel and dime him, a 10th here, a 10th there, but over the course of a routine, that's going to add up.
Coming up, the final rotation from Iowa City. Hawkeyes move to the high bar, Minnesota on the vault, and Nebraska on the parallel bars when we return. Snow-covered Iowa City as the tri-meet between Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska continues at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Coming up next, women's basketball. Minnesota takes on Northwestern. Coverage starts at 3:30 Eastern right here on BTN after the conclusion of our meet.
That weather right there is what my dad would call macho cold. It's macho cold in Iowa. Sissies need not apply.
You know, all the gymnasts are out there in the snow making their way over to Carver Hawkeye Arena. Coming down to the final rotation. Minnesota had the lead after 4 rotations. We'll see if they're still ahead through 5 coming into the final events for these 3 teams. And it is up to a 5-point margin, just about a 5-point margin in favor of Minnesota as the Gophers move to the vault where they are tied for 2nd in the nation as a team.
Yeah, this is going to be tough for Iowa to pull this off, especially when Minnesota just needs to land on their feet. They can even have a few where they don't land on their feet. As long as they don't have a complete meltdown and Iowa hits almost perfectly, Minnesota's going to be able to pull this off.
Sean Bauer on the vault for Minnesota. Ranked 13th in the nation on the vault coming into this meet.
Yeah, good start. Again, the double twist. We saw that from Iowa a number of times. At this point, Minnesota can play it a little safe if they want to. I don't suspect they will. This is dress rehearsal for later in the season at the Big Ten Championship. So I think they'll bring all their best stuff.
We'll head over to the high bar. In Iowa, a change. Del Vecchio Roscoe will start things off on the high bar, the sophomore out of Illinois. Season best of 14.2.
Skills like that endo and that full turn need to finish near the handstand. I know as you're sitting watching, thinking to yourself, I don't see any deductions. Unless he's within a few degrees of that handstand, those can be deductions from the judges and actually can be fairly significant throughout the course of the routine. And Iowa's out of the blocks. Clean routine, probably not one that by the end of the year, Iowa's going to want to have to count, but it's one of those cushion routines. Gives the rest of the guys a little bit of a cushion. Hopefully they don't have any more mistakes afterwards, but gets them started.
Over to Jack Metcalf on the vault for Minnesota. Typically just does still rings in previous seasons, but this year getting in on the vault as well.
You know, you just do one event, Mike. You want to kind of branch out. Get bored sitting there for 5 other events. Another double fold. Nicely done. Look at little knees, little spread legs coming onto the vault table. It happens quick, but the judges probably catch that. That's going to probably be up to about a 3/10 deduction there on the pre-flight.
John, you talked earlier about Minnesota wanting to improve their hit percentage. Do you feel like they have today?
You know, Mike, obviously we haven't seen every one of their routines, so I can't calculate exactly, but my feeling is they are well above that 80%. It's just my gut based on what we've seen and the scores that we've seen.
Lance Alberhaski up next on the high bar for Iowa. Junior out of Iowa City. 2.3 on high bar in his first 2 meets this year.
We've seen a lot of the same release moves from these gymnasts in this competition. We've seen the Yamawaki, which was his first release move, and then the Tkachev where they go over the bar backwards. I don't want to say those don't have a risk involved with them, but those are some of the more safe, conservative release moves. As you start to see the bigger scores in this event, you're going to see ones that double flip over the bar. The game plan worked, though. Hit a very clean routine. 2 in a row for Iowa. Full twist and double layout. Almost lands with no movement.
Following up a 14.1 from Del Vecchio Orozco. As we head back over to the vault. We'll head over to the vault in a moment after we take a look at the team scores and J.D. Reeves' team. Iowa Hawkeyes behind Minnesota. You see the difference. It's Minnesota 365.10, Iowa 360.80. Adam Kern up next on the vault for Minnesota, senior out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Adam Kern, 17th in the nation on vault.
His dad is a 1976 Olympic team member in the ski jump, Terry, and he's going to have to get some air himself right here. It's the double front. Oh, and we saw the landing similar to that from Nebraska. Deep landing on the double front, but doesn't put his hands down. Watch right here. It's the same deep squat. Nobody quite able to pull it off like Matt McGrath, but should be a decent score. One more look at it. I cannot tell you the difficulty level of this vault. Not bad.
It's a vault we will see often at Big Ten championships in March throughout the conference. May not be anybody better in the Big Ten than Michigan's Stacey Irvin. You'll see him at Big Ten championships. You'll also see him on March 14th on BTN as Michigan and Penn State face off in Ann Arbor. So we head back over to the high bar. Cyrus Dobre-Moffett will be up next for Iowa. Before him, Lance Alberhaski, 14.35 for the Hawkeyes.
And those are decent scores. They came out of the gate with a couple of scores above a 14. Unfortunately, they're not going to be scores that are going to get them closer to Minnesota at this point. Here we go. Big release over the bar. First time we've seen it today. It's a Kovacs and can't quite make the giant out of it. Very unfortunate. And there's a nice release combination. That was the Tkachev that we've seen right to the Ginger. Good finish to the routine. Took a big risk. on that huge release move, the Kovacs, double back over the bar, and it looked like he was going to pull it off and just couldn't quite get the giant over the bar. Here, take a look at it. Picks up a lot of speed. Just a little too close to the bar. When you catch the bar with your arms that bent, many times it's going to be hard to swing out of it. And again, that's why you don't see a lot of those release moves. Very risky. You got to be right on.
Hawkeyes are waiting to see if they can gain some ground on Minnesota. Over to Yoshi Morinishi on the vault for the Gophers.
It's the first time we've seen this style vault. It's a Yurchenko style as he round-offs into the board, backwards onto the vault. That was a 1.5 twist off the vault. Beautiful in the air. It's, again, one of those vaults like we've seen from some other vaulters tonight. Looks to me he's ready to add some twist to that.
So Minnesota living up to the second in the nation billing. We'll head back over to the high bar. Corey Patterson, freshman from Ontario. Had a third place finish at Oklahoma with his personal best of 15.0 earlier this year.
Interesting how Corey ended up on the team as we see a big mistake right there. William Albert, who's also a Canadian gymnast, was traveling back to Canada with one of the assistant coaches from Iowa to compete in their nationals. And they met Corey, and here he is in Iowa City. Oh, another wrong way, and this has gone sideways fast.
Corey had a rough meet last week and did not hit a routine. Unfortunately, not going to hit this one either.
He fought hard. And you like to see that as a coach. You know, he never gave up. He battled, and just things weren't going the right way. Wrong way. Did a handstand push-up on the bar early in the routine, which is a huge deduction. But nice fight, nice battle. Those battles, those little fights, those little hurdles along the way, if you can give 100% every time you come across one of those situations, you're going to be better off at the end. Best part of the routine right there. Perfect dismount.
Back over to the vault and Minnesota. Ellis Mannon finishing up his day on the vault.
Same style vault we saw from Morinishi, the Yurchenko style, but he's going to add a half twist to it. Double twist. Unfortunate, a little short, a little sideways. As far as the team result, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference, but I know it just looked like he missed that block a little bit off the table. He needs to get his hands back there a little quick. The block needs to go up a little bit more. Didn't quite have the pop off that vault table he needed.
Well, in either way, Ellis Mannon's score would have been dropped for Minnesota. It's over to Mitchell Landau on the high bar for Iowa. Comes in ranked third in the nation. 15.20 on high bar in each of the last two meets, and he won the title against Oklahoma.
This routine, J.D. Reeves said, it's easy for him. And he kind of describes this, and this is a term of endearment, Mitchell, so don't take this the wrong way. He's kind of that long, lanky kid, but he's got great lines, and he looks good on the apparatus.
Mitchell Landau waiting for the scores to come in before he's allowed to go, and getting the signal that he can start his high bar routine.
I think judges should be required to have glasses they wear on the end of their nose. It just, they look like judges.
Part of the uniform.
Yeah. You can see those lines JD is talking about. Beautiful. Great toe point. Nice Ono spin that's called out of the L grip. Nice jam to handstand. Beautiful routine. Not the huge difficulty, not the massive release moves, but just exquisite execution. Here's the Ono spin that I was talking about. Very difficult to spin out of that L grip position. Great dismount, even toes pointed in the air. Love to see that. It looks like he sticks that landing pretty much every time. Looks automatic.
Should be another score over 15 for Mitchell Landau on the high bar, and over to Zach Chase on the vault for Minnesota. Final vault of the afternoon, the 2011 Big Ten champion on vault.
And we've seen a lot of double twists today. We're going to see a 2.5 twist here. Much more difficult. Not bad, not bad. Not going to be the vault he wants to win the Big Ten championship with. As you can see, he hopped outside of those lines, but this is good to see from Minnesota. One of the tougher vaults being done in collegiate gymnastics.
14.55 for Zach Chase, and the Gophers' afternoon is done in this meet. Minnesota doing work with Ellis Mannon and the rest of his teammates. Minnesota could have another win in the regular season here. One more routine up for Iowa in Jack Boyle on the high bar to finish off his all-around day. Comes in ranked 11th in the nation on the high bar. And Iowa, great effort this afternoon. Not necessarily going to get them the win in this meet, but you have to be impressed, as you have been all day, John, with the Iowa Hawkeyes.
No doubt. Iowa, I really feel like they're heading in the right direction. And I know Nebraska did not have a good day, but the one thing I want to make really clear is Nebraska is a good team. And Coach Schmelke is not going to say it, but I will. They have a lot of reasons while they're struggling that are out of their control. You know, you lose C.J. Schaaf, your best guy, your best all-arounder on the first event. I'm sorry, there's not a team out there that is going to be able to recover from that, you know, easily. And they really have had they've been dealt a bad hand so far, but they're a well-coached team. They got a lot of talent, and I guarantee you when the end of the season rolls around, they are going to get the absolute most out of those gymnasts, and they're going to perform well.
Boyle finishing things off. Mitchell Landau before him, 15.15.
Love that combination. Full Takamoto right to the Yamawaki. Gotcha, catch in that cross grip. Finishes strong, another stuck landing at the end of a very positive competition for the Hawkeyes.
J.D. Reeve and his squad, a lot to be pleased with in this meet. And Jack Boyle going all around again for the Hawkeyes. Closes out his day on the high bar.
Looking back at earlier performances. Love the teammates. Love the teammates in the background, urging them on. And back to Jack Boyle with the last piece of gymnastics done for Iowa today.
So Iowa is done. Take a look back on Nebraska. Sam Chamberlain on the parallel bars. The best score for the Cornhuskers. We'll look at him a few moments ago.
And he is ranked in the top 20 on this event nationally. Nice underbar work done on the end of the rails. Nice job for Sam.
Sam Chamberlain finish things off for Nebraska, and that will do it for this meet. We will wrap things up, get the final scores to you when we return to Iowa City. 6 rotations down. The tri-meet has concluded, and we'll get the official word on the winner when we return. Contributor for Mike Burns' club.
No doubt he is really he's a foundation for this team, but I got to give a shout out, and I think Ellis would agree with me. Give a shout out to Steve Yachuk, who hit 3 of his routines about as good as I think he could hit it. So all in all, top to bottom, I think Minnesota really stepped up and took a step towards where they want to be at the end of the season.
And Minnesota claims another victory, winning the tri-meet again. They won it a season ago, and they win it this year as well, beating Iowa and Nebraska. Difficult day for Nebraska, losing C.J. Shaw, and Minnesota able to get this victory, John. And we look at them going forward, they certainly have the opportunity going forward to be able to have a chance to go after that Big Ten title. There's a lot of tough teams in the Big Ten championship in March, but really a strong showing from Minnesota.
Here's the biggest roadblock to any team in the Big Ten. It's called Michigan. And they've got an Olympian, and they've got some national team members. They are going to be tough, and I think all these coaches understand that they might be fighting for second or third place, but when it's 5 up, 5 count, all scores count, and you know any of those mistakes, and that can happen to Michigan too. I don't care how good you are. We've seen it tonight. You can fall off an event like that. Anything can happen. We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Well, just a few weeks away from 5 up, 5 count. Minnesota with a win, 437.4 for them over 433.05 for Iowa and 418.15 for Nebraska. The victory for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Coming up next on BTN, women's basketball, Minnesota versus Northwestern. For John Roethlisberger and our entire Big Ten Network crew, I am Mike Wolf saying so long from Iowa City. The Golden Gophers win the meet on the road over Iowa and Nebraska.